All right, and Project 52, week 3 is We the Sheeple. So we are here with Jerry Maggio and Rob Gagnon.
Yay!
Nice.
Hello.
Hello there.
Oh my gosh, wow. So Jerry, it's been forever. We haven't seen you since last week with Finding Night, but Rob, it has been more than a minute, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm alive. This has been quite some time recently, between this whole world state we're in, and I live in Brooklyn right now, and everything is kind of closed, so it's not really easy to survive, but I'm alive. Here we go. But
yeah, so
things are good.
Something that was really interesting that we kind of talked about in our last couple of reunions was the fact that Matt and Kay were in the first movie, and they talked about we were 20 and 21 when we did Heart and Souls.
Yeah.
Like they were. And so for you were also a college student that we met through the Suffolk acting community. So how old were you when you made this movie?
I was 20.
Wow. 20. Oh my gosh.
Because I'm 30 right now. Oh my God, I turned 30 this year.
You turned 30 during 2020?
Yes, it was the worst. I had all these plans. I'm like, I'm gonna have a great party. It's gonna be amazing. And then my birthday was in June. We actually we went. My friends and I, we rented a house in the Catskills and got away for a couple of days. It was cute.
Oh,
So
nice.
It was a good birthday, but it was still like, what a year.
Yeah, really. Oh my gosh. Wow.
I was 20 years old. I was a baby.
Wow, it's so funny. We're not going to be showing the outtakes, but I actually watched the bonus feature Friday.
Oh no.
In preparation for this, and it was pretty much you gammon for the camera almost the entire time, and then you would just be like, at one point you put your jacket over your head and you were like, la, 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 and I was like, wow.
Yeah. That was Suffolk Rob.
Yeah.
I had way too much energy to deal with, and I'm surprised anyone even talked to me. But it was
Oh.
but it's all cool. It's all good.
Yeah. Aw. So can you tell us a little bit about the art in your background? It is just so beautiful.
Oh yes. This is my roommate, Dorothy Rojas. She also went to Suffolk, and that's how you guys know her as well. But yeah, we've been living together for almost 4 years now, and this is all her artwork, which is all displayed throughout our entire apartment.
Wow. So, oh my gosh, 1 degree of separation.
Yeah.
Jerry was the voiceover artist for Il Destino. That was our Italian translator, and Dorothy was the female lead of Il Destino.
There you go. What week was that?
Oh,
In the 20s, yeah.
20
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was
something.
like halfway in. Yeah.
You'll be seeing her in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, and then later on, she's in another film where a horror movie with her baby Dean, and Christine plays a creepy voice who kidnaps the baby and threatens it. So,
But it's just my voice through a baby monitor. I don't actually do anything to Dean.
Okay, sure.
Oh my gosh, we have to have Dean on that reunion.
yeah,
That would be hysterical if he's like,
so big now.
guys, what is this? Why did you do that? Il Destino is week 25.
Okay.
Wow, literally midway through. Wow.
We'll see her in a while. Quite a while.
All right. So while I have it pulled up, I actually have been sharing the stats of the films before we jump into watching the film and kind of talking about it a little bit. So our theme, oh wow, who the heck gave us this theme? Our theme was politics. Our genre was silent film. Okay, and this makes sense now. The random element is a knife. I will confess, I watched the film preemptive of our reunion.
Oh, Jerry has a knife.
Jerry answers the door with a knife in his hand, and I was like, why would that be a thing?
Right.
And
That is right.
It's so intense looking, and it's not like, oh, a little knife. He's like, hello, what are you doing here? And I was like,
Well, he's making dinner, so he's all like,
yes, but it was very funny to see it. So now it all makes sense. So it's politics, silent film, and a knife.
okay, that makes a lot of sense now.
And the film has 632 views.
Ooh.
Respectable. Okay, so should we get this party going and watch this one?
Yeah, let's
Sure.
watch it, because Rob actually also watched it preemptive of our reunion, but Jerry has not. So I feel like poor Jerry's like, what's going on? What's happening right
Jerry
now?
hasn't seen this in quite a while.
Yeah. I'm gonna be surprised by everything now. That's great.
All
Are
right.
Okay. Can you folks see my screen?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna lower the volume a little bit. There's no dialogue, but some of the sound effects were a bit much, so.
Including the opening.
Okay, so here is you're sick of the opening. You were right. We the Sheeple, week 3.
Wow, that was the old
That was the old logo, yes.
Wow.
Oh, there's a knife.
I totally don't care about the knife.
Unreluctant Jerry. Why would you say yes when you were like so like, no, don't come in? Oh, Jerry. Rob trying to be his best intimidating.
I know, right? Wait, where's the TV?
I saw it in the other shot, actually. Yeah, that was great.
There it is, yeah.
You see it
Yeah,
in the background.
Oh, he leans in for that one.
Oof.
No, he means it with you.
Oh, there was a typo.
Oh, I'm sure there's lots of typos in it.
Our government thinks you was spelled wrong.
I probably spelled your wrong half the time on these films if I wrote your.
The thing is, you did, and I thought that I caught each of the spelling errors before we published it. Dang it.
And I think Rob, you can
So
see
wait,
it.
you see
Rob,
it's you see it's nighttime.
Rob's face is in the doorway.
You see it's nighttime, and you
Wait,
also
what?
see Rob creeping in the background.
Yeah, you were lurking in the doorway because the shot we thought was over. You came back to the door and he's still there. So it looks like you can't see it now, but for a few seconds you were like peering in the doorway.
Rewind it. Let him see that part.
Ooh. Okay, let's rewind.
Freedom.
Yeah, Rob, watch the doorway.
Wait.
That's awesome.
What a creep.
Seriously. What were you gonna do?
I
You
never
creep?
noticed that.
Oh, freedom is obsolete. Oh, it's so deep.
Oh man.
Oh boy.
Beautiful.
Okay, so let's get back to here. What are you doing over there?
Sorry, I was just trying to look at something.
How do I make this bigger again?
So
here we go.
Kevin Berger chose politics.
Of course he did.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. Okay,
That makes
so
sense.
Dave chose silent film,
Okay.
Adam chose knife,
Mm-hmm.
and Kevin chose politics. Wow.
Okay. Okay. I think we did pretty well with that, except for the knife. That was just a random thing.
That was one of the more random of the random elements that we've done.
Okay, so Rob, you just watched this probably a few days ago. Jerry, it's been probably like since it first appeared.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So what were your thoughts? And this was a weird one because there was no script really. It was kind of like, here's the basic idea. There are no, you said lines, but it was kind of like, just you're going to say these lines. We're not going to use the actual lines, and we're going to put text over your faces and stuff like that. So it must have been a weird experience doing this one. Like Rob, this was our first one time working with you because only week 3. And Jerry, this is the second time in a row we worked with you, so you might probably sick of us already at that point. Like, them again.
Yeah, okay. Way sick of it.
But if you could talk to like just your, if you even remember like your experience working on this one, and if it was kind of odd or like I don't know what you guys felt about it.
Rob, I'll let you go first.
Okay. I think this is actually my first like kind of film I ever did actually. So I had no idea what I was doing. I remember you guys being like, "Don't look that way, don't look that way." And I remember during that scene where I had to like wrap the thing around Jerry, and I think I tripped possibly, or
It's possible.
I don't remember. Except I remember I really effed it up, and I was just like, but I remember having a good time with it. Yeah. I was really nervous though because it was like the first time I ever did any kind of film, but I ended up having a great time. Yeah.
Oh, cool. And we did too.
Yeah. It was an interesting thing too, obviously like being at my parents' house. And so it was kind of like, well, we can't just film in our apartment every week.
No.
So we have to pretend like we have other locations. So Jerry, how did it feel to like curse like a sailor at my parents' house with my dad watching TV in the living room?
Well, I think that actually is probably the thing that I remember after you mentioned it before, that it's like, and, because I'll say it's probably a non-cursing household, generally speaking. So, yeah. So that was probably the weirdest thing because I'd done some films before. I mean, not like a ton of them, but I'd done some film stuff in college and whatever. So the format wasn't necessarily the challenge, but I think it was, I don't even remember really like a lot of like stop and go. I'm trying to remember if that like anything like stands out there, but it didn't feel like any more like crazy amounts of takes more than like, the typical film set, film situation. I feel like I remember, I mean, and this probably happens in most cases too, like a few things kind of changing and morphing like on the fly. It's like, oh, we thought about doing this, but let's actually do it this way and let's like try that. Or, oh, that happened, let's keep it, kind of a thing. But yeah, but I'd say probably the cursing, was like, oh, now I'm not the person that Christine's parents think I am.
They barely knew you at that point too. So like their first context of you is just some guy sitting there dining and cursing a lot. Way to go,
Right.
Jay.
I actually just remembered the reason why it was so like, okay, everyone, we're gonna do this super fast. My brothers were still living at home at that point. And so we had like they used to go to a respite program from 10 to 4. And so I looked at the time on the clock when the shot first started and it was around 3 something. And then by the time like Rob left,
it was nighttime.
It was not nighttime. It was I mean, it's winter, so it was like closer to 5 o'clock, which means my brothers would have been home soon or were already home. And we were kind of like, okay, we gotta go.
Yeah.
because we knew we couldn't have Jerry cursing in the house with my brothers,
Yeah.
which is why my family household was a non-cursing house, because my
Right.
brothers repeat everything they hear because they have autism. So it was kind of like, we only have this finite amount of time to be able to shoot this thing here, because if we don't get all the cursing out of the way, we can't do it at
I
all.
mean,
So
we could have done without him cursing because his face gets covered anyway. But you know, he could have said fudge or whatever.
yeah. But
Right.
I think Jerry was like, "Do you really want me to say this? Are
Yeah.
you sure?" And you actually said to him like, "Well, we want to get your mouth actually like saying the words," and you were like, "But are you sure?" Like I can remember vividly you being so reluctant. You're like, "Mr. Caribbean, I'm so sorry."
It's not me, it's just my character. I'm not really the guy who says these things sometimes, maybe.
Oh my
Figure it out.
gosh.
But I remember it actually being a fairly like easy and quick shoot.
Yeah.
Because we had to get it done quickly. There
Yeah.
was no major like hiccups, you know, because there weren't like a lot of things to flub. It wasn't like we had like, oh, these lines are said wrong because we weren't using the lines anyway. Yeah, it seemed like it went pretty smooth.
So you
for the
said there
most
was
part.
no script. So I
There
don't.
was a script, but like we weren't really using it, so it was kind of like, oh, you have to. I mean, they were saying lines.
So were you like, Rob, say blah blah blah? And
I
then
remember there being an actual script.
Oh,
Yeah, I think
okay.
there
we
was.
had like a paper and like
It was a base script that was like,
Yeah.
oh, we need you to say these things because it's going to be what's on the screen. But yeah, we kind of used the script for it, but
I don't even
it's just
remember.
it's an odd premise to like, hey, it's a silent film. We're not really going to use your lines. We're going to put text over your face. If I even said that to you, I don't even know if I did. Like, I don't know how I described
Yeah.
this to anybody.
Yeah.
I think you had, yeah, I think you had the plan of like what this was going to look like ultimately, you know, in its final format. So I think you did share that with us too.
Jerry, is that a piano behind you?
Maybe. Yes.
When did that happen?
Serious?
Wait a minute. No, I thought you had a keyboard in your office, but I didn't realize you had like a full piano.
I upgraded. I got that for myself for my birthday, which actually Rob mentioned earlier was his was in June. Mine is also in June. I'm June 20th. What are you, Rob?
June 11th.
All right, there we go. So
Nice.
Gemini?
Yeah.
There we go.
Are you cusp or is that?
Cusp, yeah. That's like right, like just before Cancer starts. I think that's like the 21st or 22nd. So yes, I treated myself to a piano for my birthday. Facebook Marketplace, $100. Amazing.
Wow, it looks so nice. I
Yeah.
just caught notice of it. Like, wait a minute, I think that's a piano back there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, I got
Play us a song.
exactly.
Oh, I think the Zoom. Oh, it's cutting out. Sorry, guys. Bye. Okay, bye. I'm still working on music, but you know, I don't know if I'm show ready just yet.
Yeah,
Maybe towards the end of the reunion tour, you can play us a song.
that's right.
Send us out.
I'll play Old Lang Syne right out the new year.
Oh gosh!
I like
Wow.
it, Jerry. I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
So 10 years later, it is kind of a weird premise, right? Like I feel like the political climate 10 years ago was very different than where we are now. And
Yes.
so I think like watching that film a couple of days ago, even right now, and watching it and thinking like 10 years ago that didn't feel
Well,
like such an intense threat.
no, because it
Like-
felt like to me, it's like, well, the censorship's always been like an issue for me anyway, like censoring people's thoughts and ideas, and you know what they can, like, especially like with art, like things like that, like censoring art has always been like an issue for me. Like I just like that always has been a hot button, and so like that's where the idea came from. But like now it does seem more realistic of like not it's a possibility, but like the world is a closer place to that than it was 10 years ago. I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like the topic of, I'll say like censorship, I mean, I think there's probably other topics today that are, you know, I'll say, I don't know about superseding it, but I mean, I guess maybe it's all interrelated on one level or another too. But, you know, but that I think was like pre Siri and Alexa, if I'm not mistaken, right? And
Yes.
that to me kind of like, comes in with like this machinery that Rob came in with, which is like attached to me and suddenly monitoring things that I'm saying and doing. And that's kind of what's happening right now, on different,
Like even your phone.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
You get the pop-up ads because you just talked about something with somebody, and your phone says, "Hey, why don't you buy this?" Like that kind
Sometimes
of.
I just think about something and it pops up. I'm like,
Wait, whoa!
no, I'm not even kidding. Like I
I'm
think about
thinking-
something and don't even say it out loud, and then I get an ad for it. I'm just like,
I'm
Wow.
with
are
you.
they in our minds now? Is
I
that what's
totally
happening?
agree.
I haven't experienced that yet. That's freaky.
That is freaky.
Oh, I've been freaked out. Don't worry. It was weird.
Like Alexa and Siri have like connected with our brains. They can hear us. Serious.
I don't really use Alexa or Siri, and every time I go home to Long Island to visit, everyone's always like, Alexa, play me this. Alexa. And I'm just like, Alexa's not real.
That is kind of me, I have to admit, though. I do order her around. It's kind of nice to do that every once in a while, but she like talks back in weird ways, and then I start to get.
She does. She gets sassy. Well, it's also my my Italian family that's always like, Alexa. Like with their big Long Island Italian accents, and it's just
But it's
like,
true,
oh,
like,
you.
when you ask her a question and she answers wrong, you're like, "That's a stupid answer, Alexa." Like things like that. We do that too on occasion.
I mean,
I do curse at her
the
sometimes.
majority. Whoa, really? The majority of what I say to Alexa is like, "Play K-Love,"
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
"What's the weather today?" And
Those are my top 2 requests, also. And
yeah,
then
I think that's it. Like, I don't really interact with Alexa a
But
whole
you'll
lot.
ask her for like definitions of words, and she'll come up with something totally random.
Yeah, every so often, Sean and I'll be having a conversation. I'm like, that's not what that means. And he's like, oh, yeah. We're like, Alexa, tell us the ways.
So
She's like,
reliant.
I know all.
Oh, my
Seriously.
gosh.
Seriously.
So it's an interesting thing because, like, part of this reunion aspect of this is that, like, 10 years later, where are we now, as people and as a community, but also like in our nation. And so a large topic of what has come up in the news this past week is censorship.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because there's various social media platforms that have banned Donald Trump from being able to participate on their sites. And so you're talking about how like censorship has always been a thing for you. So do you feel like that is censorship, or like an inappropriate thing for a company to be able to do?
Well, I think it's a tough topic because there's freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want, but there's no freedom of repercussions from your speech. You have to deal with the repercussions. And it's a corporation. You have to follow their rules and their policies. If they decide to do something, they're not stopping you from saying it. You can still say it. You can go outside and yell it if you want or tell whoever, but it's their website. It's their company. They have, I guess, the right to do what they want with that. But it is a tricky subject, but that's the thing. People always like, oh, I can say whatever I want, freedom of speech. I can say, and you can't, stop me. But like I always, like I've heard this once before, but like there's no freedom from repercussions. You can say what you want, but then you got to deal with the repercussions.
That's a really, really good point. I don't know that I've ever heard it. I don't know that I've ever heard that. And I don't know that that is something that is brought up often enough when people are having very intense discussions in which they feel like they have carte blanche to say whatever they want, and they use the First Amendment as a like blanket statement to kind of protect them from all things.
Yeah, like you can go into your boss and say, F you, you're a scumbag, and they can fire you. You can't say, well, I have freedom of speech. Yes, you do. You can say whatever you want, but the repercussions are now you're fired.
Yeah.
That kind of
You can't say there's a bomb in a theater and a fire in a theater, like there's going to be repercussions for that.
Yeah, like that's freedom of speech. I could say that, but
yeah,
now you got to deal with the repercussions.
But then you will be arrested because you
That's a great point, Rob.
You cause like public havoc.
Exactly.
Someone
which people are arguing that's what Donald Trump did. He caused havoc, and which is probably why they took him out finally. But I mean, he's been saying things for years, but it finally took that to they got to censor him. Although I guess half the country wanted him censored, and half of them just only want to hear what he says. So it's kind of a touchy subject, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even the topic of like repercussions, I mean, and just I guess even censorship in general too is always like very gray. It's hardly black and white because, who's determining like, so, I mean, maybe not a statement like there's a fire in the theater or anything like that. I mean, that's probably a little bit more clear cut, a little more black and white as probably not being appropriate. But like whatever other statement, who's determining like from Facebook or other social media platforms, who is the person that's actually saying good, not good, and what are their biases,
Hmm.
so that's the other interesting thing. It's just like, so if I was there, I think they're like, oh, well, this definitely doesn't fit like, our parameters of what's allowed, so I'm going to take it down. But my colleague next to me, who's in the same job as I am, maybe censoring things, says, no, that actually kind of still slides under the line. I would let that one go. So it's like, what's right or what's wrong, and there's just no answer to that at this point, or any point, I don't think. But it's a disaster.
Yeah, I think for the average individual that question is important, of like, well, who gets to make these decisions, who's the one like playing God to be able to do this. But I think in general, when you run for public office, you have to be held to a higher standard, and when you hold the highest office in the country, you really have to be held to a higher standard. And so I think in that way, a private company being able to say, I'm no longer giving this person a platform because what they have said has led to very detrimental, very hateful actions. You kind of have to say, like, censorship being right or wrong isn't even a question anymore. It is, we cannot give this person a platform. So it's kind of like, well, if we're going to take away the digital soapbox, then
Literally, yes.
then like you cannot spread the venom that you are spreading by virtue of our platform. So
That's a good point.
yeah.
Well, also the movie that we made, it was dealing with government censorship, and I guess we don't really experience government censorship as much in America as compared to some other countries in the world, especially. Although I feel like America has been kind of being run by corporations at this moment, in a way. So they have kind of all the power because like it took Trump's power away, basically, that he's not allowed to post his ideas anymore. Although I'm sure he still has an email mailing list and everything where you can email it out. But it's just I just think about other countries, especially where they don't have they can't say anything. If they say anything, there's going to be an actual secret police coming to their door, knock on their door, and take them away to prison for you don't know how long. And that's just so we got to take it with the good and the bad, because yes, we are able to say most things that we want in America, but at the same time, there's other parts of the world where they can't do that at all, and we definitely are a little. I would say privileged here for sure.
Oh, definitely. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And we went deep with this one.
Yeah.
This is about politics, this one.
I know.
Thanks a lot, Kevin Berger.
And what I would be curious to see is, so if we were doing SLTM films this year and that topic came up, would it be about government center? Like what within politics would we focus on?
Oh.
Your faces.
There's so much there that I don't know.
I feel like I I would ask for a redo. Like
you wouldn't want a part of it.
I would not even want to touch.
I'd want to go so all in and like go like bonkers with it.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't want any part of it, probably.
I'd be like, great, you do it yourself and don't put my name on it, and then you can go happy with it.
Well, yeah, the political climate from today compared to 10 years ago, it's so much more like everyone, it's become even so much more separated, and everyone is really on one side or the other side. Is like rarely people in the middle. And if you say something about this person, then you're a fascist or you're a socialist, and it's just all the name callings and all the separation. It's just like this day and age is a lot of especially compared to 10 years ago, where I feel like I was so like la 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 la. But now everything is so black and white. It's either this country has become more and more divided. So I also would be like, I don't know if I want to do a politics one this time. But although I am I'm always watching politic videos, and because I got nothing else to do, so I might as well just like, what are these guys doing?
Yeah.
And on the flip side, I like stay far away from like as much news and videos of anything. And I hear like bits and pieces obviously from other people around me. And like I don't know. I mean, it might be like burying my head in the sand to a certain degree. And I've told other people that. It's like, but you know what? To a level, ignorance is bliss. And I will take that road for as long as I can, I think, at this point. Because it is just too volatile, man. It is just, there's so much craziness. Like you said, there's so much black and white. There's so much finger pointing. It's just, it's
Yeah,
not cool.
exactly. And like Rob was saying, it's so divided you can't have a discussion. Because if
Mhm.
you're not on the side that if you're say one thing it's not on the side that the person you're talking to, then like you're dead to them and like you're stupid, you're an idiot, and like I'm not gonna hear your opinion.
Right.
It is
Well,
so
well,
crazy.
yeah, because everyone uses their own set of facts for everything.
Mhm.
Like
Yep.
it's everyone has what they think is the right fact, and everyone then does something else for a different set of facts. And it's
Yeah.
just there's no basis in actual truth recently. It's all what you believe it to be true.
And
And social
yeah,
media, especially now, has given the narrative to give everyone their soapbox and everyone like to say whatever they want. And there's been that whole thing with recently, like Facebook taking down posts that are
Mhm.
not they're not I guess they say not truthful, and then people are like, how do they say it's not truthful? Like, what gives them the power? So, yeah, if I were to do like, if you guys were to do like a political one these days, it would be interesting to see possibly do something about like alternative facts, because everyone seems to have their own facts in these days.
I,
well,
I
that's the
feel
thing.
like I feel
That's a
like
good point.
after like even just 2020, you could probably do an entire year's worth of
Oh,
films like just on politics. Just like all,
oh,
not that you would want
I
to,
would
but like
not want to do that.
all the different ways in which politics have like
Yeah.
changed and morphed and mutated, and like interpersonal relationships have been altered, and like all of this stuff. Yeah, it's
Yeah, even
yeah,
curious.
I just want to go back to Jerry what you said for a minute, and I feel um a certain sense of responsibility, I think, because I do know a lot of people that are in a position where they are really trying to be actively anti-racist, and that they are trying to really help us recognize our own white privilege, and to say like it is a privilege that you get to bury your head in the sand, and not everybody has that privilege. um and not that I'm trying to challenge you, because I know that your head in the sand is coming from a place of self-preservation and that you're like, I have enough things in my life that I have to take care of and worry about. But I did just want to kind of voice that perspective, because I do think there may be people that watch this and see four, Caucasian people on the screen going, isn't that nice that they get to sit in that privilege of not having to be inundated with the politics and the race war of our nation at this current point in time. And so that's not to challenge you personally, Jerry, but more to speak to that is a thing that is out there in our country right now, that people are really, some people very aggressively saying like, we don't get to sit back anymore. None of us, and I don't mean just white people or just Black, indigenous, people of color, like nobody gets to sit back anymore is kind of the argument of the anti-racist.
Well, and I'm just going to jump in there just because I guess I'll clarify. Like when I say like bury my head in the sand, like I'm talking about news and media specifically. So
Yeah.
just like because just even go back to what Rob said, like facts, and somebody has one set of facts, somebody has another, and I think on both sides, nobody knows the truth. Nobody knows the actual reality. So that's the stuff that I'm like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear who's tweeting some nonsense and who's saying something else, and like what so and so said 30 years ago versus what so and so somebody said today. And it's like everybody has a different set of facts about that. So that's really what I'm talking about, burying my head in the sand, not about things like and the racial issues and things like that. But I think, and I don't know if I've had this conversation with you before, I don't feel that it's something that I need to use a social media platform or any other platform to tell people how I feel about something, or that I'm fighting for rights and for a certain population or for equality in general. I think that, and I would hope that my actions would show that. And so even, for example, like in the company that I work for, we are making, taking steps and constantly in discussion about diversity and inclusion. And I'm a huge proponent of that, so so just to clarify that, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because hopefully, people weren't walking away like, boy, Jared's a jerk, like he doesn't even care about it, and all
I
this
was
stuff.
thinking that.
What's that? They're thinking
That's
that
what I was
anyway?
thinking.
Not nice. Not nice, but
Well, I think like what's really cool about what you're saying that like maybe most people don't know is that you work in staffing. So you are actually a part of the like taking a talented pool of people and placing them into different jobs. So you and your company being very conscious of diversity and diversity hiring is really important because again, you're not a person that is necessarily posting all over Facebook of like, look at how many people I've helped and blah, like all that stuff, but you are making the moves to say there's a really talented person for this job and I'm going to make sure that they get that job and I'm going to work tirelessly to make sure they get a job. Like, so I think that's a really important thing is that you are in a position of power when it comes to really being socially conscious to diversity hiring.
right. Yeah, and that's, I mean, so that's really, again, like that point is that I don't feel like I need to listen or watch the news. I definitely hear enough of what's going on from the people around me. And again, and to me, it's just like I want to filter it down to the important things that I just need to be aware of in order to live my life the way that I should, in order to help others and hopefully, lift up everybody, really. So it's,
Yeah, I will say it has been a very challenging time to be um a youth minister. I work at my church. It has been a challenging time to be a woman of faith because I typically try to use my social media to be spreading a message that is more uplifting, more neutral, more let us really reflect on our own behavior and how can we be informing like the general public and what have you. And I try to look at it as like a micro sense. Like I don't think I have macro a platform. You know what I mean? Like my social media is not reaching out to that many people that I'm thinking about like broader than my little bubble. But I am very much conscious of my little bubble of like what I say impacts middle schoolers and high schoolers and parents and young adults. And so I try to be very conscious of that. But I will absolutely admit that after the incident, the insurrection at the Capitol, I full on did like a deep dive, fell down the rabbit hole hardcore on Instagram and was watching videos and watching this and that and all these things. And it was very, very, I feel like my first post was like, everyone, let's try to stay calm. Okay. And then by like my 20th post, like I feel like my storage blew up and I was awake till probably like 5 a.m. just being like, what is happening in our nation? And
but,
so
but, but I
from
was,
from that self-preservation point of view, Jerry, that you were kind of talking about of like blocking out the noise, like I failed to do that day. I absolutely like went down the rabbit hole for hours and was just so like, how is this happening? What is going on? What can I personally do about it? And so that was very challenging to me. And I think just like our current climate. Sorry, Jerry, you want to say something? Go ahead.
no, yeah, and I was just gonna say, it's like, but yeah, and you've already answered. I think this is, in my opinion, of what you can do about it, and you're influencing positively the youth, the America of tomorrow. I mean, to not sound corny, you know what I mean? Like that's, to me, that's where we are. Like as adults, you know, I mean, can we change our peers' minds? Maybe, I was like, but I think what we need to do is act a certain way, behave a certain way to show the younger people of this country of how to behave, that we do have to have conversations, that we do have to look at each other as being equal, and that there's, I don't know, I think that kind of like sums it all up. I mean, it should be that simple. And the only way we're going to do it is to behave that way. And again, make sure that we're directing these efforts to the kids, who are going to hopefully be the ones that can be influenced still and taught the, I don't know about a clear right and wrong, but that that we have choices, that we have choices how we can behave and what probably might be the better way to do it versus not the better way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think also the fact that it's like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. weekend and we're having this conversation is also really important because a quote that I always kind of go back to of his is talking about, you know, hate will not extinguish hate, only love can do that. And the darkness will not be extinguished by more darkness, only by light. And I think that is such a challenge of our times, like really such a challenge that I try to sit in the light, not to dilute myself as to what's happening in the world, but to really try to be present to like what forces of good can I be trying to harness to be of encouragement to other people to not go with the low blows. And it is hard. It is not an easy thing at all. Rob, you are in contemplation big time over there, buddy. What do you want to say?
I was gonna say how I feel like it is our duty as white people to have a voice, to speak up for POC people, especially if going back to censorship. There's just so many instances of voter suppression, especially in Black communities, and they just need to have the resources and for people to in higher powers who I guess are mostly white to fight for them and not fight for corporations. So I consciously now as a person try to actively think of putting myself in a POC's shoes and how I could be better to help enable them to succeed. I work in Brooklyn. I work in nightlife, and I have a lot of drag queen friends, a lot of POC friends, a lot of trans friends, and a lot of sex worker friends, and they're always constantly getting censored on social media for just saying things that might be against the status quo of what you should and should not be saying. And some people have a livelihood on social media, and that's how they make their money and how they make contacts. So I know many, well, not many, but quite a few number of POC trans sex workers who need money to survive, and they're just constantly getting censored constantly. And I try to actively promote them or just do anything we can to like try to get the word out to help, I guess, POC people in general. It's my, I feel like it's especially after this crazy year that we've had, it's kind of, I feel like it. Dragon, stop crying. Sorry, my cat's crying. Yeah, so especially after this year and seeing and going to George Floyd protests in the city and having friends of mine beat up and having to pick up my friends off the bridge because they're being trapped by cops, and it just sees the inequality that this country ultimately has, and it's just it just feel like it's our duty to kind of do something about it in a way. I don't know if I went off a tangent a little bit there, but
No, that's okay. It's just it's not funny. It's beautiful what you're saying, but it was a little bit funny to hear you use the word duty because your character in the movie was like civic duty, and I was like, ah!
It's our civic duty though to I guess help people that don't have the voices that they should be having, and especially in this country where it's all about free speech and everyone. Yeah, but does everyone have equal rights?
No.
I think they say we do, but do we really? So.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like for so long I have been an advocate for people with special needs because that is my life, that is my world, that is my lane, so to speak. And I just kind of felt like advocacy of things that I don't have enough knowledge about is not my lane. So I shouldn't be stepping out and speaking on things that I don't know about very well. So I will absolutely own my ignorance, and then in this very anti-racist climate, talking about like, what does it mean to not just be racist but to be anti-racist. It has challenged me to really like learn, to seek out information, and to not ask Black people to educate me, and to figure out ways that I can be an ally, and calling somebody in. And I feel like this is such an important thing, calling somebody in instead of calling somebody out, because I feel like what Jerry was saying before of like challenging people on social media, you're not changing people's behavior if you just call somebody out like, you're such a rah, 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 rah. That's not changing anything in somebody's heart. That's not changing anything about their behavior. Calling somebody in and saying, you're somebody that I really care about, and I would love to see us have a conversation where we can just kind of come together about this. Because, and I'm not saying that's possible for everybody. I'm not a Pollyanna that's like, everyone should just hold hands and kumbaya. Like, I know that's not realistic, but in terms of like our friendships on social media falling apart because of these things, when if you're actually friends in real life, then you can have some of these conversations without it being a like back and forth on social media that is quite so intense.
Yeah, I've seen too many of those posts. Like, I mean, literally, like friends, I think friends that we're, possibly have in common. And there was like one of those, it was a post, I don't know, I'll say somebody made, I'll say it was an anti-Trump comment. And then literally, I mean, I probably read every single comment on that. And it was just back and forth and back and forth. I'm like, and these are friends talking to each other. And it was so harsh. It was really brutal. And it just was like, and then things were going off topic and just kind of like, well, this is what we're talking about here. Like, why are we talking? And and I just literally, I was so done. I was just done with it. And that to me doesn't help anybody, and that's not spreading, like you said, light any further than, it's actually spreading more darkness is really, I think, what it's doing, but I think that a person can still have a voice without standing on a Facebook or Instagram soapbox.
Yeah.
And I think it's how we live our lives, and our, our behavior, in whatever, segment that is.
Yeah. Well, we I don't want to say we've gotten off topic, because we haven't. This is all very much on brand
That's where
for this
it led
film.
to this. So.
And I'm glad that we had this conversation. But there is a question that I just want to ask, really of Rob, because Jerry, we kind of got your where are you now, where have you, like all of that stuff. So Rob, you talked about living in Brooklyn, but one of the questions that we've been asking every week is kind of what's changed for you from 10 years ago, and what has stayed the same. So we just kind of want to get that before we kind of wrap everything up today.
I think what's changed for me in 10 years is, I guess stop. He's scratching the couch. I have Dorothy's cat to yell at. No, I guess what's changed for me is confidence, I think. And definitely I think what's changed for me is, I think, honestly, like political openness and doing much more research on that, and trying to stay on top of educating myself in politics. I don't really like to bury my head in things. I like to like do all my research and then formulate my fact. And then, although I have been trying to calm myself to not get in Facebook fights with people, because I've gotten quite a few over the last year or so, 2 years. And I guess I lost a little weight. That's something too. But although quarantine, I I got a big old belly again. I'm like, oh no. But it's true. What hasn't changed, I think, is I guess I'm still a nice person. I I am a big softie at the end of the day, and also I definitely got more sassy over the years too. I guess that's a good thing to say, but yeah, nothing's changed overall too much, but I guess I'm the same kind of person. Although 10 years ago at Suffolk, I even can objectively say how annoying I was. Oh my god! I talked to my friend Jen and talk about like old times at Suffolk, and I'm like, oh my god, I did that. I'm like, oh. But these days, I guess I'm more chill than when I was then. I would say.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being here with us today and for taking the time for this reunion.
Yeah, thank
it
you.
was
And just thanks again for doing it 10 years ago with us. And
yeah.
taking the journey.
Can't believe it's been 10 years.
No, it's crazy.
Oh.
Happy 20th anniversary, Rob.
Oh my god, I'll be 40. I'm like, no.
Hey, nothing wrong with 40.
I didn't say anything's wrong with 40.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys so much. And we will hopefully talk soon. We don't need to wait for the next movie to talk again.
Yeah. You can always reach out to me.